Welcome to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. Wow. Trader Dan here with the Fantasy Clown today. Welcome, Dan.
What's up, guys? Hi, Ed. Hi, Brad.
Geez, another week in the books. And, man, this is the trade deadline for most leagues, I guess. As we're approaching week 13, I still have some leagues, I guess, that still have a trade deadline. But since we missed last week, I feel like we've got a full slate of trades. So I guess without further ado, Brad, bring up the trades. Let's get started with that, and then we'll kind of recap a little bit at the end we'll kind of get some knowledge from Dan of what he's looking to do as he approaches the playoffs. I know, exciting for him as he's kind of as number one seed in our Elite Eight, which is a 96-team league. So we'll talk a little bit about where that is if you guys hang with us throughout. So here's the first trade on the books. This was in a 2-quarterback league that's redraft. So just as some context there, what do you think at face value, Dan?
For a redraft league, 2-quarterback, I kind of liked it, DeVito. He's really kind of just giving Giants fans something to believe in. He's playing well enough to, for starter value, especially, after seeing guys like Dobbs and stuff struggle this past week, some of the injuries that are occurring with quarterbacks. DeVito might be one of those guys that might be trying to help someone win a championship. It's incredible. You never would have thought a couple of weeks ago, but
that's when I made the trade before week 11. So I started him before week 11, and then I actually started Browning in week 12 because I didn't know Burrow was going to get hurt when I made this trade, but I was the number one seed coming in to week 11. I was number one after 10, and I only had one quarterback, Russ Wilson, because all my quarterbacks got hurt.
Yeah.
So this was going to be
Michael Wilson. I mean, he's shown flashes, but in a redraft a lot of times Michael Wilson doesn't even make the starting lineup for people. And with his injury concerns that he's got going on now, where is he going to fit in with Kyler Murray coming back? His role, Greg Dortch is starting to step up a little bit. So Michael Wilson could be really, for the rest of the year, kind of somebody, who's more groomed to take the positions, but not necessarily thrown in the position.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So that was a thought. It might work for Snaz. I mean, I guess I don't think it was terrible for him either, but it definitely, as the number one seed in the 2-quarterback league, it's got the Elite Eight setting. So this allowed me
definitely DeVito's a guy. Even if he's on your bench, it gives you security for injuries.
Well, yeah. Now, I mean, I'm starting him or Tom Browning or the Browning guy. So I mean,
DeVito's not by this week, so you're starting Browning, but.
Yeah, well, that I am this week, but next week and beyond in the playoffs, I'm going to start one of the two, unless there's more injuries. So anyway, that's that one. Let's go to trade number 2. We got a bunch here today. So, I needed this is another redraft league.
Okay.
And needed a tight end. Like I felt like I was at that point taking swings, and I'm now not in the playoffs. This is the only redraft that I'm out of the playoffs in. But this was a swing to get a better tight end.
And as far as a dynasty, it may not have made too much sense to me because I think Okonkwo has a lot of upside once they kind of get the offensive line figured out and the offense in general figured out. But as far as this year, I think Evan Ingram's had a great year. And I don't think that changes throughout the rest of the year. So I think picking up Evan Ingram in a redraft right now makes sense.
Yeah. Now, again, like I said, I'm 4-8 now, so it didn't work, but that was my Hail Mary to get a better tight end. So that's why I did that. Let's move on to the next one. And I like kind of presenting these because of just kind of what I was thinking when I was making the move. So obviously I don't hate Okonkwo because this is a dynasty league. So take a peek at this trade.
Well, is it the tight end settings premium in this league as well?
I doubt. I don't know. Some level of I don't know that I'm gonna. But there's some kind of premium. I just don't think it's too tight end or. I don't think it's a clown head league. To give you.
Personally, I don't like to be the guy who gives up the best player in the in the trade. I'm more of a I'll find depth through free agencies and stuff like that. I tend to like to keep the best player. I think that's Christian Kirk in this deal. But with AJ Dillon kind of really filling in a nice role. But the running back shelf life is so short. Unless this is a situation where you can win now, which I'm assuming is not, considering you got rid of Kirk and Hollywood. This is a deal I think that for G Hall 13, it probably worked well for him. But I guess I'm kind of interested to see how you feel about the trade.
Yes. So this was a team, and I don't have it in front of me, but this was a team just kind of remember knowing why I would make a move like this, where I didn't think I was going to win, right? So I basically, I'm sure it's one of those things that I'm starting 12 or 14 players. So I know I've got to have this huge starting rotation. And I was just going to, well, you guys know I'm an AJ Dillon fan late in the year, so I thought this was the time to buy him in case, whatever. But I was looking at, not that Kirk and Marquise Brown are old, but if you compare them to Judy and Mims, they're older. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get younger. I'm going to take more depth. I'm going to get a tight end. I'm going to get a running back. I'm just going to basically add to my soiree of players. And, instead of relying totally on Kirk and Brown to be the future, I'm going to go with these guys. And the key to me with the Okonkwo and Mims, really, I think that they're both like 22. Like that was my theory.
A lot of people are high on Mims as well. I just know from my own trade situations that I've been in conversation with people, just the value of Judy and Dillon, it's just not there. It is what it is. A timeshare running back with a overhyped wide receiver. Mims has shown flashes. He doesn't get a lot of playing time, and I think that's more to do with just the way Sean Payton is with his rookies more than anything. But there's people high on Mims, but he's a buy cheap guy right at the moment, because I think people who put early second round draft capital on there right now are, kind of wishing that they went with Josh Downs or some of that nature. Tank Dell.
Okay, yeah, this is a league that I was in the playoffs last year. I just actually pulled it up to see what it was, and I'm not in the playoffs this year, so I guess I was trying to.
It makes sense. You get the
it's that might be part of it too. I might have been frustrated a little bit. Sometimes I feel like I'll make a move because I'm frustrated that, okay, this team isn't performing the way I thought it should, so maybe I got to rework the roster a little bit. And I'm going to pull it up just to kind of get a feel for what it is. I'm 3-9 right now as we sit here. So we start 3 flexes, 3 receivers, 1 tight end. And I'm starting Dillon. I guess I was maybe even trying to feel like I needed a running back, because it looks like I have Walker and Dillon as my running backs, and it gets bleak after that. I had J.K. Dobbins,
right,
and I just don't have. I guess I was trying to win with that mess. As I'm looking here,
at that point at 3-9, I think I would have just folded and kept Kirk or Brown and tried to move him for some draft capital.
Well, so my receivers that I really am building around, Amon-Ra and Johan Dotson. So, I do have them kind of penciled in as my guys, and then I just added Jerry Jeudy as my third receiver for the 3 receiver spots as my key components.
Yeah.
And then I have Zay Flowers, and I feel like with those 4, and then we'll see what happens with some of the other guys. And then I'm kind of loaded at tight end just because I have Freiermuth and Okonkwo and I guess I was just sort of trying to build the room a bit. And I have Cole Kmet. So, like normal, I have a lot of quarterbacks on this team. I've got, Daniel Jones and Watson injured. I've got Joe Burrow injured. So,
right.
I knew that this year wasn't a year I could win. I have Howell and Purdy as my guys that are playing. So,
still 2 top 10 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I've got Pickett and Gardner, and I'm sitting with quarterbacks. I guess that's the
unload Gardner, baby. Unload him. Draft capital.
Yeah,
you're not going to go to the playoffs.
Week 14 is the trade deadline. So I got
trade him to a playoff team that could use a little bit of depth.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah, good thing. Redraft league on this one.
Oh, redraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's Wan'Dale Robinson's situation is, he's staying healthy, which is key. But DeVito, you can tell he loves that deep ball. He's not one of those guys that likes to throw 5-6 yards like Daniel Jones. DeVito likes to put the ball out there.
Well, this is Pickett.
I'm talking about Wan'Dale Robinson.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
As far as Wan'Dale Robinson's concerned, and I think that Wan'Dale his stock will be up at some point. It's not right now, not with DeVito as his quarterback. So I think in a redraft, it's not a bad idea to unload Wan'Dale. I don't think that he's really going to help too much. He might have a game or two where he produces, but in Pickett, the same story every week. Defense wins the games. He just manages them. They don't get many touchdowns. So as far as throwing him out there as one of your top quarterbacks, it's tough. It's tough to trust him. It's okay for an injury-type person, but he hasn't performed. And then you go get a guy like Jaylen Warren. 3 of the last 4 weeks has actually absolutely crushed, his opponents, racking up points like crazy. And it's sad to say for the Walker holders, but it just feels like Charbonnet is taking over that backfield.
Well, I mean, Walker's going to be hurt again tomorrow night, and and Charbonnet. Like, I'm looking at the projections on this redraft, and this is the one that I lost out on it. So I have both of those guys starting. 23 points projection for Charbonnet, 18 for Warren. I've got Tajay Spears at 10 in a flex, and Javonte Williams at 23 in a flex. So I mean. I'm starting. I traded for these guys and I put them right in my lineup. Like, I mean,
right. Oh, absolutely. They're starters every week. Every week.
I was chasing. I mean, I'm basically chasing, and unfortunately, 4-8 isn't the right score to move on. But that's what I was thinking. I mean, you could say maybe I waited too long, but I'm not sure that Warren and Charbonnet would have been good before week 11 when I traded for him. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, Warren's been pretty consistent all year.
Yeah. Well, I guess
he really has. He has. He's
been
a double-digit score every year.
I guess I wasn't sure that I could have known to make the trade in week 7, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's more what I'm.
Well, it's tough when, Najee's the one. It's tough to go get a backup running back and just feel pumped about throwing him in, but he's produced. Yeah,
I mean, it just felt like the right time as I was trying to chase it, and I ended, season ended, but I basically. I was trying to chase it all year in that league because I had Justin Jefferson and I just couldn't make up the ground for the first round pick. And I drafted Chubb in this as my second pick.
Right.
And he got injured too. So I mean, I was chasing the whole year. I couldn't catch up. So basically dropping guys that I'm drafting early. So there we are. All right, next trade. All right, this was in
well, this is my league.
Yeah, so
it's my league.
Yeah. No, this is in this is in a redraft league as well. This is in a redraft league. Yeah, Elite 8 redraft.
Yeah, Zay Flowers, Gabe Davis. Zay Flowers is he may not, his ceiling may not be as high as Gabe Davis's ceiling, but his floor is certainly higher. He's going to get you points. Listen, I had Gabe Davis in multiple leagues. I still have him in a couple leagues. When he produces, it's just such a great feeling when you got him in your starting lineup. But, man, when you get that 0 or that 1.7 and you're like, oh, my God, this guy scored me 30 last week. and I'm I'd rather have a guy just give me 10, 15 points every week. I can count on it. If I got to count on somebody to get me 30, chances are I wasn't going to win anyways. But if I get a guy that gives me a 1 and I lose by 10, it's just frustrating.
I'm chasing my way back to the playoffs here.
Yeah,
so
I see.
Consistent floor was the way to go. Like that was what I was after, and I sort of attacked. And this is something to keep in mind. This isn't a knock against the other person in the trade party, but I attacked knowledge of I knew that this person was a Bills fan.
Yeah.
So I capitalized on that, like I really did, and I knew that, maybe I knew enough that I knew that I was higher than Flowers than the common fan, if you will. So I played those two things to get where I was trying to go, and Gabe Davis had a good game, and then I sold him. Like that was
Yeah.
the deal was in the works for a
Davis
couple
had a
weeks.
game against Philly, so it's not like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just the inconsistencies will kill you.
Right. So that was this trade. But yeah, that was kind of a trade that I made. And I'm sure you weren't surprised by me making this trade. This was kind of like in my wheelhouse. Next trade. Oh, okay. Yeah. This is a 14-team league that I won last year.
Okay. So you traded a quarterback. It's interesting. Redraft or no? This must be dynasty, right?
14-team dynasty that I won last year.
So here's the thing. Aiden O'Connell's showing enough where he might actually get a chance next year, won't you say? Or do you think no?
At the time when I made this trade, I thought there was no chance in hell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he did come out of the gates kind of sluggish, but
so,
I mean, he don't look.
Was, right. Well, this was right around the first game that he played for the new coach.
Okay.
So
right.
That would have made this trade.
Yeah.
But having said that, and so remember that was at a time when Tutu Atwell was a little bit higher than he is today,
Correct.
too.
And in a third round, you could get another Aiden O'Connell. You'll get another guy that's going to be a backup quarterback that's going to get a chance to start. I mean, Sam Howell's were all at 14-team league, so Sam Howell would have been a third-round pick. Yeah. DTR would have been a third-round pick or an early fourth in a 14-team. So you're going to get another chance on Aiden O'Connell. Tutu, he's one of those guys. He's kind of teeter-tottering whether he's going to be a productive fantasy wide receiver or not, and this is a big year. I think he's played better than most people's expectations of what they were going to get out of him. And he's with the decline of Cooper Kupp, Vance Jefferson wasn't really much of anything to begin with. So it just seems like Tutu might have a spot in Los Angeles. And
not for nothing, but just kind of so I'm out of the playoffs now. But we start 3 receivers in this 14-team league.
Yeah.
And
yes,
the guys on the bench, because I have Tutu starting. I mean, just to kind of give a little bit of and I only am starting 3 receivers on the whole team. I've got Demario Davis on my bench, Josh Reynolds on my bench, and Galen Rager on my bench. And so Tutu is obviously better than them. And if I didn't have him, I'd be starting them on this championship team. And I don't even have any in my IR or taxi. And you say, well, how did this team win last year? Josh Reynolds was a starting receiver for me last year on a winning team. Yeah. So Tutu felt like an upgrade over everything I had. So that was the other piece to the puzzle. Now, part of the reason I'm losing is Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow are my quarterbacks. So, I don't need to say too much more than that. And I do have Trevor and Brock Purdy. So I don't really need an Aiden O'Connell. So if I could turn it into a receiver, it made sense that could play every week. I thought it made sense. And, I just dropped out of the playoff. I'm 9-15. This is a median scoring league. And so anyway, that's kind of was my theory of why I made that trade. But you're probably super surprised when you see this pop up that here I am trading a quarterback for a third-round pick. But it was a little bit of, it made sense for me. And I guess that's – so sometimes people ask me for quarterbacks, and there's no real good reason why I want to sell them because it only makes their team better. It doesn't do anything for me, and I don't care about a third-round pick. This trade – Tutu Atwell is my starting receiver on a championship team. On what was a championship team. All of a sudden, he goes right into my starting lineup, and he's better than everything else I have. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's a chip. That's a piece. Then it makes sense for me to take a guy that I could care less about and turn into a starting player for myself. So it was all opportunity-based. But, yeah, that was the idea. Oh, okay, so we have Justin, a trade that Justin made, and I wanted to get your feel for it. So this is kind of cool. We saw this come down. JDM Clown made this trade and in a league, and so he traded away Browning as a starting quarterback, and he got back Wan'Dale Robinson and a 2024 fourth.
Yeah.
In a Clownhead league.
Yeah. I like it for Justin. I think that anytime you can get a backup quarterback and get. I'm a second round guy. If I get second round value, I'm happy on a backup quarterback. I know your beliefs might be a little bit different than mine. I built an entire roster off of backup quarterbacks at second round value, and turned out well in my favor. Because to me, I don't want the backups. You know what I mean? I want them. I'm not one. I don't play the defensive game where if I got them, you can't have them. I'm more. I got them, you want them. Give me a guy. Give me a draft pick. Give me a guy equivalent to second round value. And the more and more I collect of those, I'll keep finding backup quarterbacks like Browning, and I'll continue to keep getting second round value. And you know what I found is I stayed consistent to it, and I really kind of never pissed anybody off in my leagues because I don't ask too much. Hey, I'm a second round guy. I think that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it sucks that you got to pay it, but it's also fair for what quarterbacks go for in a 2-quarterback league. And it just seems like it's always worked in my favor in the end, you know. So I think what Justin did a nice job there is to go get Wan'Dale. He was a second round draft pick. He's not obviously much more than a second round draft pick right now, but then he got a fork to throw on top of it where he's going to go out and get himself another backup quarterback and just let him rest until it's his turn. And then when it's his turn, he goes and upgrades him to another second. So essentially just keeps adding to his value.
So I guess for me, I do think that I could have gotten more because I think the owner that received Kodiak Snack, right? It was a difference of him buying Browning or somebody else, or else he loses $1,000. Like it's $1,000 trade for him. So in my mind, I'm asking you for a guy that doesn't matter to you on your bench, and I want a couple more of that. Like, and I also want a security blanket that if it doesn't work for you, that I know that next year I don't got to compete against you. At least I have enough that is coming. So I guess I'm keying on the fact that the emotion of that I don't think that Kodiak could have handled emotionally in my head, and he might have been able to handle it. So I'm not knocking him. It's more the spot, but I feel like it would be something that he would either have to make a hard decision. I mean, I still remember when I got told if I wanted to a kicker for Monday night, that there was a guy that was going to sell me a kicker in week 5 or something when the Patriots kicker on Sunday night was ruled out at the last freaking second, and he was my kicker. And I was going to take a 0, which made me lose the week, which made me not get to the playoffs, which made me not win with the most points in the freaking league. I had a choice: 2 first-round picks for the kicker, Carlson, on Monday night, or sorry, you have 0 points. And you get a warning for not having a player in your starting lineup. Like I actually got a warning from the league. And I didn't pay. I didn't get the money, and later, it's one of the regrets I have. I probably should have paid the price. I probably should have paid for 2 first-round picks for stupid Carlson because it was a $750 decision I made that went against me.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee that you win at that point.
No,
there's a lot of factors that go into it.
And they were squeezing me, and I didn't know. That's the downside is it was week 5, and I didn't know. Like I don't regret that piece, but I regret the piece of laughing it off almost. Like, what was I, that a kicker's not worth 2 first-round picks, but obviously at that moment, $750, it was worth 2 first-round picks. Like, it cost me $750. Like at the end of the day, I can't look back on anything else and say, okay, if I would have made the move, and I only got very few trades that I say to myself, man, I should have made the trade. But that was one where the guy had me over the board and he wouldn't give in. And you know what? I've never forgotten it, I guess, is the thing. So that was in 2021 that happened.
Get rid of Browning. He's a bum. Good job, Justin.
Okay, we'll move on. Yeah. So, I would have liked to have more. All right. Here you go. Here's a. I'm selling stuff. Selling stuff.
Wow, tight end premium?
Probably.
Yeah. Probably. I'll be honest with you, Ed, I'm a big time Purdy Laporta fan. I think they're both the up and coming in the NFL. Purdy doesn't necessarily get enough credit. And I think that's got a lot to do with where he was drafted, and he's a 49er and anybody could do well there. fine, but he still puts up numbers. I don't care what the excuse is. The guy's good. And you see what Laporte is doing. I think everyone that passed on him from pick 5 on is kicking himself in the butt right now, unless they took Kincaid, and then they're probably feeling pretty good. But Burrow's great. But I do think that Purdy, if I were to go, give me Purdy or give me Burrow, I don't know that I'm happy with one or the other any more than if I had, I mean, Purdy he's good. I mean, he is good, and he's very seldomly
good, I don't think he's Josh Allen good. Like, I think Burrow's Josh Allen good.
Because what Josh Allen does is Josh Allen gives you a lot of rushing touchdowns, where Purdy's not going to give you that. They're going to hand it to McCaffrey or Debo. Like, that's how they score their touchdowns. Purdy's not putting himself on the line. But Purdy doesn't have like those games where you're like, oh no, I just got a 6.
Well, and
he doesn't have those games.
Start slow. I guess I'm relying on the fact that I think Burrow is a franchise quarterback. I think Purdy is a 5-year quarterback. Is that fair?
Maybe.
I mean, I think Purdy's a Goff. Goff kind of guy. Like, right? Not bad.
Brad, I know you're probably rolling your eyes, dying in the background right now.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, so I think Purdy's that. I think Burrow is Mahomes, Allen, Trevor, that kind of a guy. Like, he's
good. He's good.
Like, he's that guy. Now I'm buying him cheap because he's hurt. Like, that was my whole point. Is okay.
But that to me is not cheap. What you just paid.
Okay, I guess.
That to me is not cheap. I mean, you're talking the best young tight end in football and one of the best young quarterbacks in football for hurt Burrow, and I'm assuming probably a late 2025 pick.
Oh no, I think 2020. By the time we get to 2025, I hope that he makes enough dumb trades and he's gone with all his 2024s.
Keep trading with you, it won't be dumb trades.
Well, no, you don't have any more picks, so we don't have that. This isn't.
It's not a bad trade. It's just. I would rather be the Purdy side of it.
I think it's a one tight end league, and I think it's very small premium on tight ends too. So there's a little bit of method to my madness there.
Hey, listen, great tight ends win you leagues. I don't care what the.
True.
They're the difference maker. Look at Kelsey. 90% of I can say 90 because I really don't know, but a lot of the majority of the teams that win have Kelsey on it because.
Yeah, no, Kelsey's good.
The points that he puts up compared to the next tight end is such a huge difference that it makes up for any other deficiencies on your team.
True. No, I agree. All right, we move on to the next one. Okay. Yeah, I wondered what you think of this one. I just did this one this morning.
Yeah, and that's that tight end premium, right?
It's small. It's got 2 tight end starts. 0.69 tight end premium, but 0.49 running back premium, 0.29 a wide receiver premium. So what's the difference? Like, it's not
Sam Bunting guy. I cannot wait to ever get in the league with this guy. He loves to trade. He loves it. I would love to be in a league with this guy.
I'm in a bunch.
Yeah, he's got to make it fun. He's a guy that likes to trade. He's a go-getter.
He's a good guy. Like, he has a lot of he's got a lot of good teams. Always.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a fantasy football player.
And
he loves to trade.
I do actually. So this, and I guess we have to put this out here. So there are people that I don't want to say that I respect more than others, but I really, he comes with his best offer from the beginning. We don't haggle around, and we just kind of come to an agreement. Like, he asked me today, hey, are you in a position that you can help my team? And I'll try to make it worth your team's while. I mean, like, he kind of comes at me and says, hey, what can I do to make it worth your while? And yes, I didn't really want to get rid of Hockenson, but I think I was asking you here, and he's got no first-round picks, so I took his 2026, and I figured, you know what? I still think at the end of the day, Andrews is better than Hockenson. All things equal. I looked hard at their stats over the last 2 years, and I said to myself, okay.
Well, the thing with Andrews is he you know who his quarterback's going to be. And with that, you know where his stats are going to be. Hockenson, he really, I mean, he was decent in Detroit, but he was nowhere near what he is now in Minnesota. Well, what happens when Minnesota doesn't bring back Kirk Cousins next year, or they bring in a rookie quarterback, or you see Josh Dobbs struggling? I'm not granted he had a touchdown catch that kind of saved his fantasy week, but there's going to be a little bit of uncertainty that comes with Hockenson, where you know what you have with Andrews. The thing, my concern with Andrews is, I had a debate with a guy in my league. I just don't think I can't trust the guy. Every time I put him in, it seems like he gets hurt.
Well, and that was the thought. I look at it too. I mean, we're looking at a 28-year-old tight end. I don't know if that's too old or not. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, the first kind of put it over the top for me. I also, in fairness, I also have Freiermuth and Pitts in this 2 tight end league. So, and I've got Kate Otten.
Yeah, so you got some young. Yeah, you got some young guns.
I got Bellinger. I've got a bunch for those 2 spots, and I was like, you know what? I think it's worth me taking the risk and taking the pick. Like the pick kind of made the difference for me. And I, truth be told, Odell Beckham is kind of like a guy I just want to get rid of because he has these good games, but I don't know when they are. So if it's not best ball, it doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, I guess prime time is when he's good. So we'll go into the next one. Yeah, through him here. Okay, we got to get that a little bigger.
Unloading Gus Edwards.
I did. So this is a dynasty league. I can't win, and I said, I guess.
And I can tell you right now. I mean, Gus Edwards is a Baltimore faithful. He's been there ever since. But you just get the vibe that this Mitchell kid is the future there, right? I mean,
good.
He's good, and he fits a lot to what they do. I got my first chance to watch him over the weekend when I was watching the Baltimore game, and he's good. He's fast. He runs that RPO. He's very, very difficult when they run that, because if he freezes you, he'd buy you. So I think that moving Gus Edwards and the team that can't win right now is a good trade. I do.
And I think Gus Edwards could be the most start of the Miami Dolphins. Like, it could be that with Shane being the Mitchell. Like, I could see him being decent. I don't know when he brings a first. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take the second and run. And I don't know. He might get hurt. He might not. He might win it for the guy.
Yeah,
but
I think if that guy can win this year, it makes sense. I mean, having running back depth is vital.
And so I thought, it just fit. It just fit what I was trying to do. And a second, I thought, made some sense. And if he wins this year, I'm still okay with it because it's a 2025 second.
Correct.
So I'm kind of hedging the bet that Gus Edwards won't be great next year. Like, I'm kind of betting on that. He won't help him, be over the finish line. So next trade. Man, we got a lot in 2 weeks. Oh, what did I? Oh, this one we don't have. This was just a trade I was kind of utilizing. So we'll take that one down. So I know we have a couple more. This is a trade I made tonight. So I want to hear what you think about this one.
Now, I look at it more and more. Listen, I don't make the trade on either side, only because I don't have the balls to make a trade like this. But there's a lot of what's going on with Daniel Jones. We're not sure. The GM came out the other day and stood by Daniel Jones, said he's our guy. He's our starter next year, but we don't know when he'll be starting. DeVito kind of looks like the guy that could possibly upend Daniel Jones, depending on how he plays over the next few weeks against some of the.
He's not that good.
We'll see. I mean, when you say he's not that good, he's a lot better than Daniel Jones played.
I don't think he's that good.
Oh yeah, he's played better. I'm not saying he is better, but he's definitely played better, because the one thing the Giants can't do is get 10, 12, 6-yard plays in a row and not fumble, not throw an interception, not get a holding penalty. And what DeVito does is he'll take an 8-yard sack, but he's going to throw a 15-yard pass the next time. And I think that his motto fits the Giants scheme a little bit better than dink, dunk, and let's try to score. So with that, and I'm not saying DeVito's going to take his job, but somebody may. Hopefully
I
a guy
guess
named
I
Jaden
think the
Daniels.
financial commitment to him is great. I mean, I guess I'll be shocked if Daniel Jones isn't starting for somebody next year.
But it's and you know, if you got Daniel Jones is going to play at some point, somewhere, somehow, some way. He's going to play, even if he's a backup for the Giants. Their offensive line's not going to protect enough for a rookie to come in and not take a couple snot rockets. I like the first. The problem is you don't ever get a guy like Josh Allen back. So when you give him away, just know that you're giving him away.
Yeah. Here's the thought. I mean, so two things. I've been working with Omni Crush for 2 weeks on this.
I know you've been working on it for a while.
I knew he wanted Josh Allen, so give him credit. We were kind of haggling. It was coming down to I wanted Jalen Hyatt in addition in this trade, and then Jalen Hyatt had the good week last week, so I kind of have a little egg in my face because I had an offer with Jalen Hyatt and that second, and I ended second. So this came in. So yesterday I thought I'd get Slick Willie and ask for all the people in my league. I was going to have a fire sale on Josh Allen pretty much, and so I got 4 offers, and I decided to counter them all tonight as I was just kind of accumulating them. And once you get to that point, you almost feel like an obligation that you need to make a move. So now this was my best move that I had, so that kind of boxed myself in. Now, in fairness, it's a 14-team Superflex league. So there's a little bit of that can go either way, Josh Allen. But here's the thing. This is year number 4. I've never made the playoffs in this league.
Yeah,
so
make a move.
I'm kind of saying, and I drafted Josh Allen in startup. So he was my first round pick. I did try to build around him, and it just hasn't worked. And I thought, you know what? I need to have more depth. I need more. I need to spread this out. I'm too top heavy because this isn't working. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to reset. Now, I do think the 2024 first with Josh Allen, this guy might win. Like, he might win. It might be 1.14. And my pick is probably the second pick in the second round. So it's probably only moving up 3 spots. So it looks a lot better than it is. Now, I might be able to still wheel a first-round pick come February-ish when people don't realize that it's really pick 13 or 12 or whatever the heck it is, and they just see first-round pick and they don't put the math to the 14 teams. So that wasn't my theory. I am pretty high on Mike Wilson. Thought that made sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I thought 2 quarterbacks that I conceivably could start makes a lot of sense when Pickett is my only other one. So if I have Josh Allen, I have to start Pickett. At least now Pickett becomes my number 3. And then we see what happens with the rest. So that was my theory. I don't know if it makes any sense, but it was what I'm going with. And,
I mean, you got a Burrow could be maybe not QB1, but QB3, QB4 with Daniel Jones, who was QB9 last year. So essentially you could be starting 2 top 10 QBs. I just don't know if you ever see Daniel Jones come back to that QB9, but time will tell.
We'll see where it is. I guess I'm higher than you are on him, but I guess that's where we are.
Yeah, I watched enough of them.
And we got one more trade to kind of look at here. This is another trade that I made with Sam Bunting.
Jesus.
So this is I'm a big one. Like, I made this one this morning in the sauna.
when I look at it, I just, for whatever reason, I'm just not a Deshaun Watson guy. Mark Andrews. I mean, I'm assuming this is a team that you're probably going to be rebuilding.
No. So interestingly enough, I think I have enough. So he's the 4 seed, needs a quarterback. So I was wondering, do you help a guy that needs a quarterback? I'm the 6th seed. I sure as hell don't need a quarterback. I don't need anything. I'm firing up. I was gonna have Sam Howell on a bye anyway, on week 14, so it wasn't going to help me there. I've got Purdy. I've got quarterbacks. I'm good. Like, I don't need to start him. It was fine. And my theory was a little bit of a hedge bet on Howell. What if he doesn't get to play next year?
Yeah.
I do believe that Deshaun Watson will play next year.
Oh, he'll play.
And I did look at Deshaun Watson when he did play this year. He actually was high in the QB. Like, if we look at his QB, whatever he was like a QB1 when he played 100% of the snaps. And I was like, okay, maybe he's better than I envisioned. Like, I watched him and I didn't think he was very good, but he was still QB1. And Sam Howell has played games this year and he hasn't been QB1, like a QB, top 12 QB. Like, he has had some that he's been.
He's the number 4 quarterback in football right now.
Yeah, but he's had games that he threw 4 interceptions and we thought he was going to lose his job too. Like, he's had the games, and so
he's on a downward slump right now. So I agree.
I just didn't know. Like, I thought, you know what? And here's the thing: the first, second, and third again are more hedges. But like, I guess I feel like draft picks are hedge picks, right? We know that they're not going to get worse.
Right.
And again, Sam has no 2024s. So he's got to hope that Sam Howell is good next year.
Yeah.
Like, this year doesn't really matter for those picks, right? That doesn't affect the picks. But I've just taken away his ability to start Deshaun Watson as his QB2 next year because I have him now. And he's got to hope that Sam Howell has a job next year and doesn't get hurt. Like, otherwise, he's got to sell the 2026 first, to go solve the problem. Like, I've kind of pushed him into a little bit of a corner was what I was thinking. So that's why I did it. And I thought, well, by the way, I could go get Andrews again. I have Hockenson. I sort of feel like I'm selling high on Hockenson. I don't know. Maybe I'm not, but I feel like I'm selling high on Hockenson.
Yeah, tight end 1. Why not?
And what if Hockenson is a tight end 5 next year and I buy him back for?
Well, he's also a year older.
Well, yeah, but I can buy him back for cheaper than Mark Andrews. Like, I guess I feel like I can buy him for Ingram or somebody, whatever slop I have.
Yeah.
Or Freiermuth, maybe. Maybe I do that, something like that. But
anyway. A lot of trades this week, Ed. Good for you, buddy.
Yeah, I've been moving for the guy that doesn't ever make any trades. And
Brad, on you.
Can you bring up that Josh Dobbs picture, if you would? I just want to get Dan's take on this because I think it shouldn't go unnoticed. It's something that I really that makes a difference because of what we trade. That it's not who or what you trade. When you trade matters. So I kind of want to take a look at these dates. So this guy, we had this guy Neil. He added Josh Dobbs in the offseason on August 28th. That was basically when he was nominated the starter in Arizona, right? Like, now there's no more Colt McCoy is not going to start. It's not going to be Clayton Tune. It's going to be $185. This is a $1,000 fab budget. So basically 18.5% this guy bid on Josh Dobbs. Well, less than a month later, he decided, hey, I'm getting rid of Josh Dobbs for a 4th. Okay, so I scoop in and I buy him for a 4th, right? I don't need a quarterback, but I just buy him for a 4th. Figure, okay, makes sense to me. Less than 60 days later, I sell him for a 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, so we've got 3 players in this draft. But just right now, did any of these 3 players lose in this Josh Dobbs thing? Would you say any of these 3 players lost? For sure. Definitely.
After you put up a 4?
What is that?
After you put up a 4 this week?
Well, yeah, I mean, but I guess what I'm saying is Neil can't win in this transaction, right? He used 1/5 of his fab budget, and he just basically got a 4th round pick. Like, unless he hits lightning in a freaking bottle, he'll never. I mean, unless he wasn't going to spend the money, but you know what I mean. Like, he has no ability to win. Now we might say Z flew. I don't know. Like, whether he wins on this, I'm not sure what the 2026 first picks, but not having that pick could be really freaking costly. or actually it's HHS Henry. Not having that pick, man, that could be awful.
Yeah,
Pick
especially for a
her.
guy if he continues to struggle like he has the last 2 weeks, and he isn't a starter, and he is a bench player, and he is. Oh God, that's why I have such a hard time part my draft picks.
Right. I mean, like, look. I
I'd
mean,
rather swing and miss in the draft. I'd rather
and
draft Trey Lance.
look back on November 12th when he bought him for a first on November 12th. We were all happy about. I mean, that was right around that trade to Minnesota. Like he had a couple good games. Like he was. It wasn't after the last two. That was 2 full weeks ago. So, in fairness to him, that was after. But I guess I say that's when you sell, right? You sell. And so, why I mention this is it really ties into the Hockenson moves that I've been making. Is I feel like Hockenson ain't going to be higher than the tight end one.
Right.
And I'm just betting that he's not Travis Kelce. And what I mean by that is he's not one, never gets hurt, still one, never gets hurt, still one, never gets hurt. Because I view it as we don't know quarterback. We see Justin Jefferson come back. Justin Jefferson is going to get targets. Somehow Addison is going to factor into where is his role in this thing. And if he goes from 9 targets a game down to 6 targets a game, that's going to make a big difference
Absolutely
in the deal. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying, what if he becomes tight end 5? Then I've made a profit because I'll buy him back. Like, I don't hate him. I like him, but that's where we are. So that's kind of the takeaway on that. So final thoughts that I really wanted to ask you about a little bit, Dan.
Yeah.
I know you've really taken a team in the Elite Eight, which is our flagship league that we have, 96 teams, and you took the team. I remember I was running on the track last year in a panic, saying I've got to eliminate a guy from the league because he's basically traded away all the startup picks and he has no players, and I just need somebody to take over this and try to win in a couple of years. He's got some draft picks, and I saw quickly you are just making trades, and that's why the nickname Trader Dan came into play. But as you sit now after week 12 in the 1 spot in that division, I guess I want to get kind of your feel on building, because that's what gets lost is it's a process of building. And what do you go through as you approach the trade deadline this year and, making decisions? I guess I'm really interested in that. What made.
Yeah, so when you called me at 5 a.m. that day, I just said, Ed, you're nuts. I don't understand. And you kind of gave me the rundown of the league and, being a good friend of yours and all the things you've done for me. I said, I'll do it, whatever. And I looked at the team and I said to myself, what am I thinking? But what did happen is when he did trade away all the startup picks, he left me a boatload of 2023 draft capital. And it just so happened that the guy who was in 6th place ended up getting the first pick, which allowed me Bijan Robinson. And then I was awarded the 2nd pick, and at that point, I was a Stroud guy at that point. And then I had an offer with Jalen Hurts to move up to the 2nd pick. Now I had to add a few other things to it, but it went with my philosophy of get your quarterbacks, get your wide receivers, then go get your running backs. But Bijan was one of those guys you don't pass, right? You got to take them,
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, if I have Jalen Hurts, even though I may be giving up a 2nd pick and another starting quarterback, I have a guy I know, surefire, is going to give me quality fantasy football points. So I do the trade there with him. And then I just slowly started building pieces back and forth with trades. And my goal really was to compete next year. So my whole process was to, really load up for this 2024 draft with draft capital, which I did. And I still do. I kept a lot of the draft capital, but it was tough because my focus was next year, get to next year, just, and really things kind of came into play a year early for me. And a lot of it's got to do with luck. Some of the trades I made didn't really work out in my favor. And some of the trades really did work out in my favor. And some of it just came down to luck, and I was fortunate enough to where the luck rolled in my favor this time and not against me. And then I always realized too, because I followed the playoffs last year, just as a thing, like just to give myself a little bit of experience on what teams could have done better differently. And I realized that a lot of teams don't have the depth. And yeah, it's nice to roll out the top dogs in the league, but I'll tell you right now, having a guy like Thielen, even though he struggled last week, is nice when you have a wide receiver go down. And now it's like, holy cow! And now I got to go start a guy who only plays 32% of the snaps. But yeah, I have Thielen, who I could have gotten for third right at the trade deadline. And it's just nice that I was able to go build depth, and hopefully, if I do make the playoffs, if injuries do occur, that the injuries actually roll in my favor and not against me. So, kind of.
What did you feel like you did? Like, so what went right this year? If you were to look at your team, and what would you say? Hey, this went right. Like this.
So
this
obviously,
was,
trading for Jalen Hurts was the first thing. Drafting Bijan helped a lot. And I went and got guys like Trey McBride last year, who helped. And then I kind of went away from my philosophy when I realized, holy cow, I got a chance. And I went and got older guys, believe it or not. The Raheem Mosterts, the Thielens, and yeah, although those guys aren't, Thielen's not really overly producing right now, but he got me to the point where I am, and he gave me a chance to win when he put up a 32. And I was a 60-point underdog, and Thielen goes off, and Mostert went off, and then McBride had his big game, and I'm just like, holy moly, this is crazy. And then I realized that those older guys, they're like having a Stephon Diggs, a Christian McCaffrey. It almost feels like they have the playoff experience, but they're consistent. They're consistent, and they know how to keep themselves healthy, and they know how to produce. And as big as our fantasy games are, those games are getting just as big for those guys, right? They're playing for a playoff spot. They're fighting for a number one seed themselves, and they produce. And when they're on your fantasy teams, they produce for them too. So, just starting small pieces, and then my younger guys just produce this year.
Now, do you start with? You mentioned something there that kind of aligns with my philosophy, and actually, producer Brad and I were talking just before we all met here tonight, offline. Do you start with certain positions and then build out? Do you build well-rounded teams? Do you or do you?
I feel if you don't have your quarterback room, you don't have a team. I strongly believe that. If you look at my fantasy teams, the first one I ever got into, the very first thing I did is went and go and got Josh Allen. So give me a quarterback, I'll build the rest. Right? You're not going to find a Josh Allen on waivers, but yet you might find a Noah Brown. You might find a Tank Dell late in the draft who can help you. You just don't find star quarterbacks. Now, Brock Purdy was the exception. He was on a waiver wire when you and I had talked one day with Jimmy Garoppolo starting, and again, he believes these people are all going nuts with this Purdy guy. They're all picking him up, and I'm like, who the heck's this Purdy guy? So I went and picked him up, and thank goodness I did, because he's a big part of the reason why I'm winning now. But you just got to have your own philosophy. Now, mine is give me the quarterbacks first, and once I get the quarterbacks, I'll go get the receivers, because their longevity is much more than the running backs. And then once I have that core team down, now I'm going to go make my move for running backs. And like one of my very last trades, Rachaad White, I went and got him. You know what I mean? Because I had my quarterbacks in place. I got my wide receivers. And with a 4 wide receiver league, you're not going to have 4 top 10s. It's difficult, and people who see you as a threat, they're not giving you their best players. So you just build with what you got. And then when I went and got a guy like Rachaad White, I said to myself, I'm adding a top 6 running back to my team right now who's getting ready for a playoff run. I got to do it. This is the time. I built my team. This is the time. Now I could come out next year, Rachaad White may not even start for all I know. Who knows? And it could be, but I had the pieces in place.
At least he's young, though. He's not.
He's 24.
Yeah.
But I had the pieces in place to where I felt now is the time to go get my running back, even though I had to pay up K. Dot and Jalen Warren for him, I said to myself, you know what? It's now or never. I drug my feet on Christian McCaffrey, and the guy went and made a trade, and I was crushed. And I said, Christian McCaffrey was the guy I needed to win. I feel like he's a guy in Clownheads that if you have, he automatically gives you a good chance to win because of his production week in and week out. I didn't get him, and I was really in a tough matchup, and I said I need this guy to win. And then late before the game, I kind of made a pitch towards Rachaad White. The guy was dragging his feet. I'm not selling Rachaad White, and I was like, I'm not giving up till I get him. So we might as well talk. and he came back and he's like, listen, you're gonna have to pay up with one of your young tight ends. And obviously McBride was off the table. I wasn't giving him up, and he came back with Kate Otten, and I tried going back with Conklin, and he wanted Otten, and I wanted to give him Conklin, and he wanted Otten, and he got Otten.
Well, and I think that Otten can be replaced with Conklin in your championship team, where I think you got better at running back. So I understand that move.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I just like Conklin, but
Conklin he wasn't going to start. I mean, and I was actually going to talk about, if you brought up some guys, maybe some trade targets to go get late before the draft deadline. I wrote down a little bit of list and some guys who I felt were valuable.
Who are you targeting? If you do have a trade deadline this week 13, week 14, who are you targeting at this point?
So first thing I want to say is I really think Sleeper should make the trade deadline before kickoff of this week. So if it's a week 13, you should have all the way up to the kickoff of week 14 to make your trades. Only because what I say is a lot of people don't really know if they're going to, in Clownheads per se, a lot of people don't really know if they have a legit chance almost until that last minute of that game the other night. And I watched Clownhead W, and I watched Phil Upper and another guy, and it came down to the last play. Now, that changes your strategy on whether or not you want to go get a guy for your playoff run if you win or lose that week. Well, if you had that extra couple days before kickoff tomorrow night, I think that would be a little bit more helpful. So I want to throw that out there for Sleeper if they listen, because I don't think it's an option.
And I think we can, as commissioners, we can actually make changes to our league. I mean, what would be the harm in talking about a week 13 trade deadline?
All I'm saying is it should end. It shouldn't end off the last game. It should end before the first game.
Yeah, I get you.
I think that would really, really change. And I think I just think it would give some people time to really just go, okay, now let's go make this move. Because even myself, I mean, granted, I actually had that game won well before that game started, but I was also juggling in my head is I'm writing people, hey, if I have a chance to win this week, I'm willing to make some moves, part with my draft capital. Are you willing to move with me? And it just felt like these people were like, all right, well, are we wasting our time? You know what I mean? Like, they got stuff to do. So it was like, I get it, whatever. But
yeah,
I would like to see that changed. And if we can't do it, if Sleeper could do it, that'd be great. But anyways, who I like in real deep leagues, if you can go off the waiver, I think, depending on how deep your league is and depending on the premium on your tight ends, I think a guy to keep an eye on is in real deep leagues, obviously, is a guy, Tucker Kraft. I've been watching the Jets play a little bit. He seems to be taking over that tight end role a little bit more. That's kind of why I was hoping.
Well, Musgrave's hurt. Musgrave's out. He's hurt. So that's why.
No, Tucker. Oh, shoot. Not Tucker Kraft. Rucker. I'm sorry. Jeremy Rucker.
Okay.
From the Jets.
Yeah.
I can't read my handwriting.
Okay.
But he seems to be getting a little bit more targets and a little bit more playing time. And I'm kind of getting the feeling that the Jets are trying to figure out what they have with him. And I think if the Jets start to go downwards a little bit more, you're going to see less Conklin, more of him. And I think that he's a guy, if you need a fill-in, he's not a bad guy to go get in a deep tight end league. The tight end who I like the most going forward, because I think he's got been playing the most consistent football out of them all. And I think that you can still kind of get him for a decent price. You're not going to get him off the waiver wire, but I think you can still get him for a decent price, is Njoku. He's put up solid numbers for like 5 weeks in a row, top 10 numbers. He actually just slid into the top 10 fantasy tight ends. But when you think about Njoku, you don't think top 10 tight ends. And if you can get him at a discount right now, I think it's the time. He's got, unbelievable matchups from here on out. And it sounds like Joe Flacco might be his quarterback. Although P.J. Walker peppered him 15 times, he can only complete 7 of them. I think Joe Flacco comes in and he kind of keeps the same role as a security blanket, but they score more touchdowns. So I think Njoku's a guy, if you can get him cheap, you're going to go make a playoff run, he's the guy to go target. As far as wide receivers in deeper leagues, Khalil Shakir, if he's still available in some of your things, he's a guy to go get. He's a guy to trade for if you can still get him cheap. He's playing in over 70% of the snaps in that offense. He is their number 3 guy. And with that offense, he's going to give you points week in and week out. So I think Shakir's a good guy to go grab if you can get him cheap. I also like Dortch. If you can get him right now, I know I picked him up off of a couple waivers in some of my 12-team leagues. If he's still available in your 12-team leagues, go get him. He's another guy playing 75% of the snaps. We're not sure what's going on with Michael Wilson, if he's going to play, if he's not going to play. Hollywood Brown's constantly injured, and he had a good rapport with Kyler Murray last year. And as soon as Kyler Murray came back, it was Dortch time again. So he's a guy, deep leagues, if you can get him cheap in a trade, if you just need some security, he's a guy to go get. As far as my running backs, I like deep leagues. If you need a guy, if he's on there and you don't really feel like making a trade, Dearness Johnson. I said it probably 3 weeks ago that he was a guy to go get. It looks like he's taking over Tank Bigsby's 2-man role there. It looks like he's going to be the second guy up. He's the first guy off the bench. He's putting up some pretty decent fantasy numbers for backing up ETN. We all know about ETN's injury history. Any given moment, he could be done. Dearness Johnson will be the guy. Not only will he be the guy, he will put up some serious fantasy football numbers for you. He's a guy to keep an eye on. If he's in your leagues and you're going to get ready to make a playoff push, if you can add him, put him on, because I tell you, if he gets a chance, he can really put up some points.
Well, so I looked just to kind of give you some feedback there. So 3 leagues, I saw Dortch of the leagues I'm available that I play in. I saw Dortch is available in 3 leagues. I have 0 shares.
Yep.
Dearness Johnson, he's actually not available in any dynasty league outside of our 10-team small style league.
Yep.
And I have 20 shares of Dearness Johnson though. Yep. So I obviously am kind of ahead there.
You took my advice 3 weeks ago.
yeah, and Ruckert, I did see he's available in about 7 of my dynasty leagues.
Yep.
So just kind of, I only have 1 share. I picked him up in my 384 team league, but I'm out of it. I kind of collect tight ends there, and so I picked him up this week. So I'm with the 1 Ruckert. So that's all those guys.
And my running backs, other running backs, if you're willing to make some trades, you're not going to find these guys on waivers. I think Singletary right now is a guy I think you can still get reasonably priced because of his, he listen, you got to go on a team that doesn't have a chance to win and try to go get him. You can't go to the number 1 or 2 seed and try to get Singletary. It's not going to work in your favor. But if you got a guy in your league who's got him, who's sitting in the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seed, who isn't going to make the playoffs and says, listen, I'll take some draft capital. Here's Singletary. Good luck. Go make your run. He's a guy to go get. I also like, because he's had 2 bad weeks in a row, and I think that people are down on him in the way their offense is set up, is Austin Eckler. I think that right now you could get him cheap. The guy can play football. You know what I mean? He can play football. He had a couple down weeks. They've been peppering Keenan Allen. You and I talked about it. That's going to change. If Eckler's available for cheap and a guy who just didn't win because he was hurt, had that Justin Jefferson, Austin Eckler combo, and it didn't work out for him, and they're willing to sell him cheap, go get him. Don't be afraid of the last 2 weeks. That's not going to be continuing. He's still getting 80% of the snaps. He's going to be the old Austin Eckler.
I agree.
Another running back we just talked about, I think is going to be a top 5, top 6 running back again. The rest of the time out is Rachaad White. I don't think he comes cheap, but if there's a like you're like, hey, I need a guy for a championship run, go get him. And my quarterback of the week that I think you should go get, and I think it might be a little too late, that daylight down short, and you told me to go get him last week. I do agree with you, is Joe Flacco. If he's still available, go get him.
Yeah, agree with Joe Flacco as well. I'm going to add one tight end that you didn't mention that I think is available a lot of places, and is Brevin Jordan for the Texans.
Yep.
And basically, my theory on that is Schultz got 48% snap share last week, and Brevin Jordan, I think, got 52%. And
Really? I don't know how I missed that. You're right on that.
There was no injury that was related there, and I think that there will become.
Are you sure? Because Dalton Schultz showed up questionable on injury report last week.
I mean, or he wasn't in the medical tent, I guess, and there was nothing there to it. It just
It's
felt
definitely worth noting. I agree.
Yeah, and I think so. You can get him real cheap on the waiver wire, and if you played in leagues with me, you saw that I was picking him up pretty much everywhere, just because it's a speculative ad for $0. But I saw that JDM Clown he went and got him and bid more than me, so I guess I told him, and he went.
Did you give him advice?
Smart move. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess, and the other thing is, I wouldn't be a buyer of Schultz given that situation, because there could be a time when they want to see what they have. If they fall out of the race, that's when these weeks they start to find out, like Ruckert, if the Jets fall out of the race, we won't see any Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to see what we have with these guys, because that way they can let Conklin go. That way they can get cap relief with Schultz. Like, it's a thing that'll happen as we go. So be aware of that when you're buying. Like, is this team a good NFL team that I'm buying the player from? Or is this somebody that's going to transition to a younger guy and see, buying Derrick Henry right now will be scary, because they might want to see whether they have with Tajay Spears. Like, not that they're gonna just take all Henry's carries away.
Right.
But let's just say they give Spears 35% of the carries.
Right.
Just to see.
Right.
And that could, change the dynamic. So I always kind of.
Schultz had a hamstring injury, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, very good.
And I'm not saying
that
they're
might
not
be
changing regards, but I find it hard to believe that Dalton Schultz is a hell of a football player. He's good. He's their best option at tight end. He's probably their most secure, pass catcher. I mean, guy can play football, but yeah, I agree. You get a guy with a hamstring injury, I'm not buying him either.
Well, and he's 27 or 28, even though he was signed by this regime. So, I mean, just knowing what it is, I just feel like the 23-year-old guy, that everybody's kind of forgotten about, that has a lot of talent, might be something. And that, and again, it's all relative cost, right? I'm buying him with $0 $5 or $1 $5. I'm not buying him with $10 $5, and that. So that's the kind of ad that I'm looking for at this point. Don't really have any solid receivers or running backs. I was on Dearness Johnson here a couple of weeks ago. Do like Flacco as my quarterback. I kind of, went a little strong. I do think he'll be the starting quarterback this week. I'm adding Cunningham in New England. Again, speculative ad. Don't know that that's going to be a thing, but.
Well, I wish it would. I just want to see him play.
Well,
I mean, God, those other two guys.
At some point, those guys are going to decide, let's see what we got with this guy, right? Let's see what he can do. We know what the other two guys are, and that ain't good. So I mean, that's why I'm kind of thinking that. Like, that's how – I don't know how coaches think beyond the coach I know. But beyond that, I guess I say that's got to be how coaches think, though. Like, right, let's see what we have so we can make decisions about the future. So
you got to have a reason for fans to come in and
well, that's it.
I mean,
that's what ownerships care about.
With Giants with Tommy DeVito. I mean, God, just look at social media with the Giants. It was like, this team sucks and an embarrassment. All of a sudden, this guy brought life back to the team. It's the guy the Giants needed. And then there's the other people who are like, this idiot won games and the Giants are going to lose Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Well, and
the Bears got Caleb Williams.
That's what I'm thinking in New England. So I'm anxious to see. So Cunningham is my other ad of the week. I think that I don't know that he'll start this week. I honestly don't think he will start this week, but I just think it's one to have in the hopper. Just have it in the hopper. He might flame out. He might be like the guy in Minnesota that didn't do anything, Jared Hall, when he got his opportunity, right? It could be that. But what if it's Brock Purdy or Sam Howell? What if he gets a cup of coffee and it becomes something that makes some sense?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and in New England,
For a
would
buck
it
or two, it's
shock
worth a
you?
shot.
I mean, would it shock you that a late round draft pick became the
Mhm.
guy in New England? Like, would that even be a shock to anybody? Like, seriously, like that's kind of how they do it. The first round guy doesn't make it, but the guy coming out of the fifth round does. You know, like that. That's kind of how.
That's why I hate having any type of New England Patriots on my freaking fantasy roster.
Well, I enjoy drafting their first round picks. That's what receivers, first round receivers for New England. That's
Yeah, N'Keal
go to
Harry,
them.
he hammered home for you, bud.
Yeah, you win a lot of it. So anyway, I digress. That's that. Want to just in our closing, I want to just kind of outline what we can expect for weeks going forward. We're real excited. We're going to change the format between Dan and I as we move forward into next week. We're going to actually do some team breakdowns, and we kind of have some teams that some of the people that are in our Discord are sharing with us, and they're saying, "Hey, this team didn't accomplish what I thought they would at the beginning of the year. This is what I was trying to do. This is how it went. You guys take a look at it and see if there's anything that you see with it. Not that we have all the answers or any silver bullets or any just magic potion pills, but sometimes an outsider looking in is an important piece. And as we got the first write up for next week from that guy, I could almost see the light bulbs going off as he just wrote his summary of what it was. And I thought, sometimes just writing it down makes a difference, because you're like, wow, I made that mistake, I made that mistake. And we didn't have to say anything. They just kind of see it. And I think that becomes a healthy exercise. And I know that's worked for me in my leagues as well, when I started to write things down about what happened. And I guess I'll leave that with a parting word. Research I did, I do track quarterbacks as a rule. And this year, would you believe it, that we've only had 14 quarterbacks that have played that were not starters at the beginning of the year up to week 12, where last year 19 quarterbacks that didn't start the year played by this point. So last year we had more injured benched quarterbacks by week 12 than we do this year by 5, by a large margin. There's been less quarterback injuries this year than last year. So harder to navigate the quarterback market last year than it is this year. I'm shocked by it, to be honest. I thought that this year there was all kinds
of the big name guys, though, with Burrow, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones.
Well, but when we look at last year, they were big guys too. We just forgot it.
Kyler.
that they were big. I mean, I think, seriously.
Kyler Murray. But who else? Who are the big guys last year?
Last year. So
Deshaun Watson this year. I mean, you lost some big.
Okay, so by week 12,
I'm gonna say lost. I say season ending.
Yeah, by week 12, so we had Mike White starting for the Jets. We had lost Mac Jones, and we had 3 quarterbacks starting for New England at that point. So we had Bailey Zappi and Brian Hoyer starting by that point. We had lost Tua, and we had Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson starting for them. So 3 of the 4 teams of the East had quarterback changes. We had Jacoby Brissett and Kenny Pickett, because remember, Mitch Trubisky was our starter last year in Pittsburgh, so that was gone. And then we had Kyle Allen in Texans land because Davis Mills was hurt. We had Malik Willis for Tannehill. We had Matt Ryan was down in Indy. So we only had 1 quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, healthy in the South. And then we did it out West. We only had Russell Wilson as a guy that missed time, in the West and the AFC. So the Herbert, Mahomes, Carr were okay. We lost Prescott early. So he was done. And then we did have Daniel Jones and Jalen Hurts still at that point. Now Jalen Hurts did get hurt later in the year, but he was okay yet. We lost Carson Wentz, so Taylor Heineke was there. We lost Justin Fields. We had Trevor Siemian playing football. We lost Baker Mayfield in Carolina. That went to P.J. Walker, and by this point we had tried Sam Darnold too. We had Andy Dalton playing for Jameis Winston. I forgot Jameis Winston was even a starter. We had Jimmy G that was starting for Trey Lance by that point. Brock Purdy had not played football yet until week 14. So he only started last year in week 14, just kind of as an FYI.
Really? No, it seemed earlier than that.
Yeah, doesn't it? I mean, like Jimmy G started week 13 as the backup. He was the backup quarterback in week 13, so he must have got hurt week 13. Geno Smith did play the whole year. We had Bryce Perkins starting for the Rams. So we had
I remember
Stafford.
that. And then we had Wolford. I tried getting a second for
And
Wolford.
we did have Kyler Murray returning week 12 last year for Colt McCoy, but then he soon got hurt, in week 15 in the playoffs. So that was ugly for us. But so that was kind of what was going on. I mean, you're right, maybe not the top line quarterback that we had.
Yeah, we lost a lot of top quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, but if you just think about sheer number when you're drafting at the beginning of the year, if only 13 of the quarterbacks that were drafted at the beginning of the year as starters were playing in week 12.
Yeah, that's one per team.
That's
quarterbacks hold a lot of value.
Yeah, so I guess I've kind of come away and said, for everybody that criticizes quarterback hoarding, if you call it that, it's kind of crazy because they're the most valuable asset, scoring the most points with the least amount of availability on the waiver wire. Like you put all that together, it doesn't matter what you think the value should be. It's more than you'd ever think. Like it's got to be more than whatever you think it is. So anyway, I agree.
It's crazy.
Well, I guess we end it here. Excited for next week. Next week we're going to break down some teams. We're going to use some of our analytics. We're going to really take a deep dive. And
are we using our new software, or are we?
We'll get to that here in a moment. But yeah, we'll come back and we'll come at you next week. And so I want to thank everybody for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will have some live streams coming at you. So for now, that's Dan. I'm Ed. So long.
Bye, guys.